Hello, welcome, and sorry. We got a surprise Maple Bitcoin episode on a Wednesday. Happy hump day, everybody. I'm Jor. I'm joined by my good friends Forrest, Rajat, and a special guest today, the very first guest on the Maple Bitcoin show, Mark.
Howdy.
From Maple AI. So we got a couple different things we're going to chat about today. The title here is Why AI is Extremely Bullish on Bitcoin. We're going to be talking about maybe utilizing AI to earn Bitcoin. We're going to talk about the synergies between AI and Bitcoin and why it's going to be so powerful in the future. And we figured who better than to have on than somebody who's actually built an AI and has used Bitcoin. And so we have Mark here from Maple AI, the pretty good name. We'll give you that. I think you had it before us, but we are all from Canada. Where'd you come up with the name Maple?
We just wanted something that was user-friendly. And so we were actually along the coast of Florida, so opposite direction of Canada. And we were looking at all these trees and forests that are like right on the ocean. And we started just kind of looking around at them and realized that there are these forests of trees, and maple are one of these types of trees where they communicate with each other underground securely and privately.
Really?
Yeah. And so if the edge of the forest is experiencing some kind of threat, then they will send messages throughout the fungus underground to all the other trees so that they can prepare for said threat. Or if they need resources, they'll share resources with each other. So we thought that was really cool. A very good name for something that is private AI. So that's where we came up with it.
It's so cool that no matter what you talk about no matter who you talk about in relation to Bitcoin, you're always going to learn some random fact that they just have stored away somehow, and it just clicks out of nowhere. It's so funny.
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. So basically, we want to give a couple disclaimers here before we go any further. Although we are both called Maple, I wish I could say that our Maple name was that well thought out. We kept it really simple, being from Canada.
Yep.
But anyways, we have no affiliation with Maple AI. I've used it before myself. I love the product. They do focus on open source and encryption and security, privacy, all that kind of stuff, which is right in line with what we talk about. And so we just thought it would be great to have Mark on just to talk about a couple of different things with AI, with Bitcoin, how it all flows together. And we see some people in the chat there. So just a heads up, we're not going to be too focused on the chat today. If you have any specific questions for Mark, you can either send a super chat or a zap to guarantee that we send. We just won't have time today to get through a lot of questions. So say hi if you do have a question. That's a good way to do it. So Mark, maybe just briefly talk about Mark's actually, I call you the pregame show to the Rabbit Hole Recap now. I don't know if that's a new thing or planned or whatever, but Mark's working with Marty, I think, RHR, a couple different people there. So maybe just give a quick background about yourself, Bitcoin, AI, and kind of where things are at today.
Sure. Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm a Bitcoiner. I've been a Bitcoiner for many years, and I come from the tech world. I did a few different startups, and then most recently was at Apple for 6 years, working on an internal project that had a lot of visibility, but it was basically AI, machine learning, and privacy all rolled into one. And we were doing computer vision as well, so cameras and LiDAR and stuff. So it's been a big part of my career. But when I was ready to kind of leave the big tech space, I really wanted to work in Bitcoin. So about a year ago, man, it's been a little over a year now, I joined up with the Mutiny guys, if you guys remember Mutiny Wallet. I joined up with them, and our goal was to take Mutiny and scale it much bigger. But we ran into some UX problems, which was like asking the onboarding experience where you ask users to write down a 12-word seed phrase before they can do anything is just really difficult. And it's like users, you give it to your mom and she's like, what is this? If I lose this, I lose all my money. It's just kind of a non-starter. So we started trying to figure out how can we make the user experience better. And we had also started looking at confidential computing or secure enclaves. And we realized that could be a really good way to solve this problem. But due to some other circumstances, we won't get into the details of why right here, but we decided to shut down Mutiny Wallet and do a pivot. And Ben and Paul had other things that they wanted to work on. It was a friendly separation, but Ben and Paul went their own ways, and Anthony and I are still working together. But we pivoted now, and we're doing Maple AI, which is effectively secure enclaves, confidential computing, trying to do end-to-end encryption with AI. But you can pay for it with fiat credit card, or you can pay for it with Bitcoin, which means we accept Lightning, we accept eCash that comes over Lightning. And we're trying to give people a solution that is the alternative to ChatGPT. So it's going to be a user experience like ChatGPT, but you get privacy, which they are not giving you. So in a nutshell, that's me. And then I also do something called Freedom Tech Weekend, which you referenced, Jor. Every week on Fridays, I just show off some Freedom Tech tool that you can play with this weekend to slowly decouple your life from closed technology. And recently, I was doing it on my own channel, but recently I was working with Marty, and he said, hey, why don't you start broadcasting on TFTC? So now I do it live on TFTC as well. And oftentimes that means I am the opener for Rabbit Hole Recap. So a lot of people show up really disappointed when they see my face instead of those guys. But I get to warm up the crowd ahead of them.
So, Mark, you mentioned there that you guys accept Bitcoin, Lightning, and eCash. I mean, this kind of gets into something I've really been curious about for a long time. Is there a crossover, or will there potentially be in the future, or even now, if there is, a crossover between people using Bitcoin and AI together? Like, it seems like, Bitcoin was designed to be the digital currency, and AI sort of needs some sort of payment behind it to operate, right? Like a lot of these AIs have created tokens themselves, not cryptocurrencies, but tokens, and you buy them so you can use the AI. Will this be something you think will happen in the future with using Bitcoin, either through Lightning or eCash or Bitcoin itself on chain?
Yeah, I think a lot of it will come down to that L402 movement that you've probably are familiar with. You guys familiar with the 402 thing?
No.
So when the internet specifications came out, they had all the different error codes that they published. So you have 404, which is a famous one, right? You go to a website and the page doesn't exist. Well, they created one called 402 that was payment required. And in the specification, it said this is for a future time when digital currency exists native to the internet. This was like back in, I don't know the exact date, probably the 80s, maybe earlier. I don't know, maybe 90s. And it just has kind of sat there for a while. And then a few years ago, some Lightning developers decided, let's make this happen now. And so they built something called L402. And it was kind of overly complex, so it didn't get adopted. But there's been a resurgence. They've improved it a lot. And then Coinbase actually has come out with one called X402. And they're trying to implement it. And I believe Stripe is actually kind of looking into this as well. So there are multiple people. There's been this resurgence with like, how do we take this native digital currency now and implement it into the HTTP spec of the internet? So then you say, well, how does this apply to AI? And really what it is we like to talk about AI agents. And an AI agent is effectively just some bot, some software that you have running for you, an app that you just have running 24/7 on your behalf, doing things for you. And one approach is you pay a subscription, a monthly fee, and then it just runs. But over time, we're going to have so many bots.
Can I just ask you, so that subscription fee, what is that paid for? What's that? Why is that cost there? Just so people know, like, okay, this is what you're paying for.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, the GPUs are really expensive to run. The servers are expensive to run. Each LLM that you use, whether it is, in ChatGPT world, you have 4.0 or O3 Pro, these ones, each of them has their own cost of running. And so they're tokenized. And so when you type in, a token is roughly like a word and a half, maybe. So when you're typing in these LLMs, it looks at how long you typed and how much context you gave it. And that is a cost to run that query. So that's really what the subscription pays for. And either you are paying too much or you're actually causing the company to lose money. It just depends on how heavy of a user you are. So that's one approach. Or the other approach that some people are taking is I'd rather just pay with Lightning, or I'd rather just pay with Bitcoin and only pay for what I'm using. And so I think that's where a lot of these AI agents are going to come about, where if you have your main agent and you say, hey, I'm hungry, then the agent says, okay, my person is hungry. Let me spin up an agent that knows how to go order DoorDash and order a burrito from Chipotle. And I'll pay them to do it. And how am I going to pay them? I'm going to send them a few sats over Lightning, and those agents will go do that work for me. And so there's going to be this whole agent economy. And I think that it really just makes the most sense to have them all passing Bitcoin around, just passing sats around. It's too difficult to do fraction of a penny payments with a credit card.
That reminds me of that Black Mirror episode where, do you guys remember the White Christmas episode where they take the consciousness of the woman, they put it into like an AI a box, and they basically make her work for the host. And then I don't know, it just reminded me of that, where you have those AI, I guess those bots where they can do whatever you need them to, and they will hire or they'll create an AI. What did you call it? An AI
agent.
Yes, an AI agent. They'll just create an agent to do whatever you need to. Like in that episode, they were basically having this AI control center. It was controlling everything. Like it would push down the toast button, heat up her toast. It would have everything ready by the time that she was awake. It would set up there, and that's essentially what you're paying for. That's such a cool idea to me.
So you mentioned there's a little bit of friction with not being able to make like fiat divisible enough to pay for some of this stuff. I've also heard people talk about how an AI agent could, it might be difficult for an AI agent to create a bank account and just work within the fiat system, right? But with Bitcoin, there's no resistance to that. Is that maybe part of the concept as well? Or like how, because right now, I mean, we use fiat on digitally, right? So people could make the argument, why wouldn't AI agents just continue to do that? Like, what is the friction point? Why is Bitcoin needed for these agents that could run on their own?
Yeah, well, when you look at it from a fiat standpoint, if we want agents to be paid through credit cards and fiat and mechanisms that require a bank account, then we are really gatekeeping who can be innovative in this world. Because there are computers all over this planet and there's internet access all over this planet. And who's to say that somebody living in sub-Saharan Africa won't make a really good AI agent, and they want to put online, and my AI wants to talk to it and use its service, but they likely live in a jurisdiction where they won't be able to sign up for Stripe, won't be able to get a bank account. So why would we want to limit that innovation? Let's just use Bitcoin wallets. Let's use eCash, and let's let the best agents and the best technology rise to the top.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've kind of been struggling with myself, is like, why is AI going to use Bitcoin over other tokens? I get the point of like the fiat example there. Every time you send a payment, I mean, that's one of the big things that Bitcoin actually solves, is the ability to send micropayments across the internet. We never had that before, right? Because it just didn't make sense. You can't send 5 cents over the internet because there's 4 or 5 people touching that 5 cents, and everybody wants a cut of that 5 cents. So why would people use, let's say that there's some XRP folks in the chat, or Caspa, one of our new favorite communities. Why would AIs use sats instead of like a different cryptocurrency?
That's a good question. Honestly, if it's short-lived, then if they can convert from like one to the next, they could use really any technology they want to, but you're going to have slippage every time you convert. So if they're like, hey, I'm going to hold on to Bitcoin as my main currency because it doesn't go down in value, then when you go to make the payment, flip it to XRP, send it across the wire, and then I want you to put it back in Bitcoin or put it back in USDT. Again, you're paying fees all along the way. So really, it comes down to the store value. Like, I think that's what it all comes back to, right? I'm not going to store all of the money that I want to pay for AI. I'm not going to store that in XRP because I might lose half my purchasing power overnight. And I'm not going to store it in my local currency if I live in some other country, even the United States, Canada, like these currencies are being debased. So I'd much rather store it in Bitcoin. And then when it comes to paying for these services, I'd rather just pay in Bitcoin because I don't have any conversion fee. So that's where Lightning and eCash come in my mind. So that's my response. I'm curious what you guys think.
Well, yeah, I just want to add a little to that. So it makes sense if you're understand what Bitcoin is and the store of value side of it. But correct me if I'm wrong here, Mark, but it's really up to the developers. Like if a developer created an AI agent service that used XRP and people found that valuable, then they could use that. But realistically, it has that fundamental flaw that you pointed out, which is the lack of a store of value, and you can't hold that currency for any real duration. But technically, technically, it's up to the developers to decide what the currency is that these AIs use to some respect. Am I thinking about that correctly, or what do you think?
Yeah. No, I think you're correct. Just like any store that you open, any storefront, you can choose to accept any currency you want to. Depending on the jurisdiction, you might be required to accept the local currency also. If I was part of the XRP army on Twitter, I would for sure be building an AI agent that accepted XRP so that we could like pump the price, right? I would totally be doing that. I'm not part of that army, but really it just comes down to like, how do you think your users want to pay? So if you look at an AI like Venice AI, Venice is another AI that promotes to be a privacy AI, and they made their own token, their own altcoin. They've got I can't remember what they call it, but it's some kind of Venice AI token that you can buy and trade on Coinbase. And then there's somehow that token is used to pay for Venice. I'm not sure the business model that they have around that, but they've done that, and they feel like that is a good use of a token to pay for AI that way. But you can only use that token with that AI. So I think that a lot of different companies are going to try different things and accept different currencies. But at the end of the day, I just see them all going back to the one that is the best store of value, and it's all going to build from there.
Yeah,
I think if we go, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just agreeing.
I was going to say, I think if we go a little further into the future, if we go to like general AI and they are their own businesses, I think at that point, it'll be more about the decentralization than anything, because they know that if these are basically like their own bodies, they're their own businesses, then they don't want to get rug pulled by the U.S. government or by Ripple or by ETH Foundation. I think at that point it's going to be more about the decentralization than even then the even compared to the store of value, right? Because to them, I mean, the way that I see it, to them, to AI, time doesn't really exist. Because AI is just like they're not living bodies, and to them it's like you just shut it down and you can turn it back on in 10 years. To them that time doesn't really matter. I think they're more about that decentralization because they don't want to they don't want to get rug pulled like Russia, for example, in 2022 2021, when the US government basically said we're not gonna allow you to spend your treasuries. I don't know. I think that could have more of an impact, but maybe that's further down the line when AI is creating its own AI kind of thing.
Like the permissionlessness of the network,
yes,
is what you're pointing to. Yeah,
the permissionlessness, the decentralization, the fact that more Bitcoin can't be created. We actually don't know, even with other coins, like we don't know with ETH. Sorry, for example, with ETH, there's no limit to how many coins can be created. I think that's the decentralized. That's a result of it being less decentralized or not decentralized at all.
I thought ETH was totally decentralized.
Dino, I think they call it.
The splurge,
Dino.
whatever.
Yeah.
What
you're describing. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say decentralized in name only. I think that's what they call XRP, the dinos.
Yes, that's right. What you're describing, though, is something that any business really comes across. So an AI agent could just be the same as a business. So for us, and I know I've talked to a lot of other Bitcoin founders, it's the same way for them. We accept fiat payments because we're realistic. We live in the real world. We want people to pay us how they want to pay us. But I do know that, as NVK loves to say, I'm always one bad email away from my whole company just going under. And someone could create some kind of shitstorm online and try and get our company canceled for some reason, right? They generate something inside of Maple that is so horrendous, and they post it online, and now Stripe feels like they have to cut us off because we have, you committed some cardinal sin. And so we are we have a second rail. We have Bitcoin payments. We accept Lightning. And so we could continue to run as a company if that were to happen. And honestly, we might see a boost. I'm not going to create a false flag and get ourselves shut down for this, but we could see a boost where suddenly Bitcoiners are like, dude, the fiat system is trying to close these people down. Let's support them even harder now. But for us, it's more just we need to have a backup because we can't always depend on the gatekeepers to allow us to continue to accept payments.
And WikiLeaks is a great example of exactly that happening, a long time ago, but Bitcoin being a solution to that exact problem.
Yeah, for sure.
I think even if you compare AI to a business, like a small business down the road, I think that the AI would have access to much more information than the local store owner would, right? And so when you have access to information, I feel like that's the biggest disconnect in Bitcoin right now, is that people just don't know how to value it. They don't know what they're holding. They don't know what the value is here. And so that person who owns that corner store or a shoe store or whatever, they don't have that information. They're too worried about running their business. That's what their focus is on, right? That's how they spend their time. But I feel like if it's an AI agent, they would have access to all the information on the internet. They would be able to make the best decision and therefore would choose Bitcoin based on historical data, performance, decentralization, store value, all the things we talked about here. I would have more faith in AI making that decision over a local business owner for that reason, if that makes sense.
All roads lead to Bitcoin. Yeah. And the AI, I mean, it's why we all converge on Bitcoin as individuals. We've looked into all of the other options and we've decided, Bitcoin is the best solution to that. And AI is no different in that way. You can give it parameters, but when it looks for the best solution for how to trade value, it's going to converge on Bitcoin most likely. Even now you ask AI, like, what is the best sort of all this and what, like, best currency, or like, put in some different concepts and it spits out Bitcoin, right? Like it says Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. If you ask any AI, the only one that I've seen them actually recommend using is Bitcoin.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's not just about then, I guess, just to kind of round out this aspect of it. I like this. I've never really thought this through in this depth before. But if it's not so much that the AIs will use Bitcoin because it's an easier way, or it's cheaper, or it's anything like that, easier to move. It's because it's the better asset. It's, it has nothing to do with micropayments or stuff like that. Like there'd be probably 200,000 cryptos that could facilitate this kind of thing with minimal fees, with lightning speed, with instant settlement within the other wallets. But the whole reason is because Bitcoin is just simply the best crypto. That's what it really comes down to, right?
They can also run their own nodes, right? They can also just have a copy of. I mean, they can just do their own accounting. They don't need to worry about somebody else doing the accounting for them. So they could have a node. They could run a node. They could make sure that the record of all transactions is accurate. So it just gives them full power over another cryptocurrency. Like, let's say, I don't even know. Okay, let's talk about Caspa, for example. Like with Caspa, would you think that an AI would want to run a pruned node? Probably not, right? Because how do they know what happened earlier? Like they're not they're not going to trust people. They're not going to go for stories. AI doesn't care about they care about hard facts.
Yeah.
Right? They don't care about this creator is like this. They think this way. They're not going to go for those stories. All they want is the hard facts. They want the history, and that's what that ledger is. So for them to run Caspa, for example, if they want to run an archival node, it'll cost 5 to 10 terabytes right now, and then going forward, it'll cost more and more and more and more in space. So you're going to have these AIs being run in like industrial buildings, and that just centralizes everything even more. If the US government wants to stop you, you're screwed. Right? And it just, I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see AI using anything else for multiple reasons, right? There's the decentralization, there's a store of value. What else is there?
I mean, it's unconfiscatable. So
Unconfiscatable,
it can't be taken away. Immutable. All sorts of great characteristics of Bitcoin.
Even the network itself, like I think that's what a lot of people sleep on in Bitcoin, is just like the the recognition of Bitcoin. I know the media has done their best, and governments and central banks to try to brainwash people into thinking that this is, not the best thing. But like, you ask pretty much 99% of the population, and they've probably heard of Bitcoin. I'd say a very small percentage of those people know what Bitcoin is, and understand it would be even smaller than that. But like, Bitcoin's a pretty recognizable name. It has a huge global network, which I don't think that anything else does, aside from the US dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and somebody said they're neutral. That's key.
Neutral, yeah.
That's so important.
And liquidity as well is another one we didn't talk about, or we originally talked about. But yeah, liquidity is important.
Yeah. And so Snaky Jake said there, why would AI not just use Stripe? Because it doesn't have those characteristics and it can be printed out of nothing. Why would AI want to accept something that can be printed out of nothing when they have to use actual energy to create what they're creating? I think,
and like Mark said there, like, Stripe could say, sorry, you can't transact with us anymore. It's one email away from a company like Stripe. If it's a company, if they have the ability to shut you down, that's the problem. That's what you don't want, right? So aside from like the verification and all the KYC stuff that a Stripe would have to use, they can stop you at any time. It's not permissionless like Bitcoin is.
Yeah.
Mark, let's maybe switch gears here a little bit. I think that one thing that I'm curious about in terms of AI, because it seems like a lot of people are using it right now, have used it before, I've at least tried it out. A lot of people like me use it for, just a better Google search right now. But what do you think the next kind of iteration of AI is going to be? And what's Bitcoin's role going to be within that? Is it going to be more important than it is today, or same or less?
Okay. Yeah, it's a good question. Two-part question. So I think the first part is a lot of people using it for web search, like you said. Instead of going to Google, you either you search in ChatGPT or one of these AIs, and it gives you like a Wikipedia response, right? Or it'll give you current factual information from the internet. That's like the first step into it. But then you have people who are building and being creative with AI. And so they're using it for writing. They're using it for doing strategy. Michael Saylor from Strategy is very famous for saying he used AI to come up with a lot of their new offerings that they've put on the market. So, and sometimes I think that's kind of hilarious that he did that. But I think that's a big part, right? Helping you be more productive in your role. I think for anybody at any company, you can look at the role that you're doing every day, and you should look at the tasks that you do on a daily basis or a weekly basis and say, which of these can I use AI to help me do better? Because you can get more done and get noticed more than the person next to you, get a promotion. Maybe you could eventually go off and start your own company. If people are getting laid off in a company, which is super sad, but there are layoffs happening, maybe you avoid being laid off because you've started incorporating AI and become the shining star in your organization. So I think there's a lot of that's kind of the next step, is people learning to be more productive. It's not just a fun parlor trick where you're sitting around, you're playing poker, and you're like, oh, let me look up this, what is my hand good or not, right? Like you're not doing that to look up the rules. You're using it to be productive in your daily life. And then the next step beyond that would be the full-on agent stuff that we're talking about, apps that run for you while you're asleep and go do things for you, whether it's watching the stock market for you and making trades, or whether it's, I don't know, there's all sorts of use cases, but you can have it doing things for you to help you make money, get leads, go out and find leads for your business, for sales, maybe following up with those. And there's already services doing that where it suggests, okay, here's your CRM, here's the things that you should be doing to follow up with the people. And it puts things on your plate, writes a response for you, and you just review it and click send, right? There's a lot of that going on. And then the final part of Bitcoin, I think it really just comes down to how autonomous do we want these agents to be? And where do we want them to live in the world? Do we want them to have to live inside a permission system of Stripe and fiat payments? Or do we want them to come from anywhere in the world and the best app wins? If we want the latter, and we really want innovation from anywhere, then we're going to have to use a permissionless system, because Stripe is not accepted everywhere. Bank accounts are not accepted everywhere. And so we really just have to use something that can be transmitted over the internet. That's my take.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So just for people out there who might not be as familiar with AI right now, I've used AI agents before. It was a very simple task, and it was getting them to design me thumbnails on I forget what the website was even called. This was about a year and a half ago now. But for people listening, like an AI agent is basically something that you can an AI bot essentially that you can give a prompt to, and it will go and complete those tasks for you based on how much you're willing to pay it. And there's AI vending machines, which you can actually think of it like an actual vending machine where you put in whatever you need to be done. And there's all these different, these bots that will actually take that job based on the amount that you're willing to pay. So that's kind of like the next part of, I think, what's going to happen with the economy right now. And it seems like there are people who are onto this, who are building for this. There's a lot of people who are going to get left behind, I think, in this transition here. But in terms of that, like, where do you see that? So if everybody's, if AI and robots are replacing a lot of jobs, or in the meantime, kind of in between then and now, there's a lot of humans utilizing AI to keep their job or to get promoted or to build a business, whatever that may be. What happens when AI is pretty much doing everything for us and robots are the ones working in factories and all that kind of stuff? What do you see in that future? That's something I think about all the time in terms of what does it mean for Bitcoiners? What does it mean for everybody else? What will people be doing? Will there be UBI? What's your kind of theory on this? The next, the world of abundance, you might say.
Yeah, we're treading into politics a little bit here, so I'll be careful. I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to left or right, wherever you want to be when it comes to politics. But when I look at the future, I am not as doomer as some people are with AI. I do think AI is going to replace a lot of jobs. It for sure is going to be doing more than we're doing now. But I look at it as just any other tool, any other revolution that's happened over the centuries. When a new tool is introduced, jobs are displaced temporarily, and then either people retrain themselves or new job opportunities pop up. And I see that happening with AI. Jack Mallers loves to talk about how we're all going to be doing art one day because AI is doing all the hard stuff. And if that happens, that's cool. Like we're all going to be doing that, and we're going to be living happy in abundance. But I also think that there is this whole unexplored world out there that we don't even know about yet of new jobs and that are going to be created. And that doesn't mean that everybody's going to be an entrepreneur. It takes a certain character mix of somebody who's willing to become an entrepreneur. But I think we're going to have a lot of smaller businesses. There's just going to be thousands and thousands of small businesses that will employ a handful of people rather than a few big Mag 7 big tech companies that are employing all the people. And so AI is going to help facilitate that. And I don't know what those are yet. I don't know what that looks like. None of us know. But someone like Andrew Yang, who comes online and says we're all going to be on UBI because AI is replacing all our jobs. I don't fully buy into that. I don't think that we're going to need UBI because I think that there are going to be new job opportunities out there that we just don't know.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean for that question to be political. I just meant,
you're good.
Regardless if it was Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, I just feel like that's kind of how I see it too. But Forrest, Rajat, you guys have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, one thing I was thinking about was in a potential future where AI is running off of Bitcoin and maybe those jobs, that Mark said will come about or have the potential to come out. Maybe they don't, or there's a transitional period before they do. And UBI isn't a thing, or there's some challenges based on the impact of AI on individuals, but AI uses Bitcoin. You're going to want to be the person and the individual that has Bitcoin so that you can implement AI to work for you in some respect. So that's another like crossover thought that I have between Bitcoin and AI that Bitcoin is going to become more and more useful and powerful in a situation like that where AI has more of a meaningful impact.
So if you don't have Bitcoin, you can't use AI?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's possible. I mean, There could be other ways AI is always going to have some sort of cost associated with it, which is what Mark was talking about, the GPUs and the electricity. So, in a world without fiat, then what would it use, right? If we Bitcoin has the best chance of replacing fiat. So yeah, it would need some sort of input. So you got to earn that ability to create the input for the AI or have that already to be able to spend.
Do you think there might be two classes of AI? You'll have the ChatGPTs, the Groks, the others that work off of fiat, but you have to be willing to play nice within that sandbox. And then there will be the renegade AIs that use Bitcoin that can do anything that you want. I'm just curious, do you see that happening in the future?
That's probably like more so in the near future. I see that happening than in a far future. I mean, there could be there could be ability to use AI, but you have to like watch an ad, right? Like, there could be all sorts of ways to pay for an AI, right? But I mean, potentially that could happen in the future. I mean, even what you guys are doing at Maple AI, right? Like you have the ability to pay in fiat or Bitcoin, but you are offering an additional service beyond ChatGPT and Grok because you have privacy as part of it, which is super important for businesses and individuals as well. But those, the other, what you said, like the play nice within that sandbox type AIs, they don't have that, right? They basically are harvesting all your information as far as I understand. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's how people. That's a good point. I think by both. If you don't have Bitcoin, you're either going to have to give up your privacy and basically hand over all your data and information, kind of what's happening right now, or you're going to have to give your attention, which you alluded to there, Forrest, which is watch an ad. So those, to me, are both forms of currency, which is your data and your attention. And I think that if you have Bitcoin, you might not have to give up either of those things.
That's a good point.
So it's interesting. I think for me, in terms of this whole, what we're talking about here, like I was in the city a couple of weeks ago and there's so many parking lots, there's so many cars, there's all this stuff. I think the world's going to look so much different in a decade from now between robo-taxis and stuff like that. And I just feel like if that's the case, like that is so incredibly bullish for the Bitcoin network. Anybody who's holding Bitcoin today, if you consider the individuals, the companies, the countries, the pension funds, but then you add AI into that, robo-taxis, robots, the AIs that you interact with every day, there's going to be so much more demand for Bitcoin. I said to my brother, like one day there's going to be robo-taxis here and we're going to be able to pay like 10 sats to get anywhere we want to in town because, and that just to me shows how valuable these sats that we're holding today are in that type of future. What do you think about that, Mark? How do you see that playing out?
Yeah. So I always approach this from a privacy angle because I get really excited about the robo-taxi idea and what you just described, where I could just zap a taxi and have it zip me around, right? Zap to zip. You heard it here first. So I love that idea, but I also, on the flip side, like if I drive a Tesla and it's got a camera inside the car and cameras outside the car and it is driving me everywhere, like I'm fully surveilled at any moment, right? I don't know what's happening inside of Tesla, but they can watch me, they can listen to me, they can know where I'm going. So I hope that there is a way that we can maintain our privacy somehow, right? And if you are inside of a big city and you need a robotaxi, it's most likely you're going to have to be playing nice by the rules in order to ride in that robotaxi. And if you have said something wrong online or performed a transaction with someone that the government deems unsavory, then maybe you can't ride that taxi. And maybe your friend tries to pay for you, and when you go to get in, the camera sees your face and says, this person's not allowed. Like, I hope we can find a way to still have a free and open society where anybody's welcome to use those services, those public utilities.
Another crossover here that I'm thinking about is, like AI is incredibly powerful and it can be used for like good, or it could be used for bad, right? In that way of, helping surveil and things like that. And Bitcoin is kind of similar, where the technology of Bitcoin has been adapted into things that can be surveillance technology as well. And it's really like, it's kind of like we have to individually fight for the good in these technologies and actively funding the people that are doing the good. And, if we can work on that aspect ourselves too.
I think that, one thing that gives me a lot of hope, because that is a scary future. That's before I even discovered Bitcoin and started studying Bitcoin. I was very black pilled. I knew that there was a problem. I could see where this thing was going. I didn't know that there was a solution. But I just feel like in that world that I was alluding to there, where a taxi ride costs you 10 sats, just strictly because there's so many people and AIs that want Bitcoin. There's so much demand for it, and there's only so much Bitcoin available. But I foresee in that future, if that plays out the way I expect it to, Bitcoiners are going to be the ones who have the wealth, and the people who have the wealth are going to be the ones who build the tools. And so whether that's an AI like Maple AI, or there's a robotaxi that's focused on privacy and doesn't have cameras in it and stuff like that, I think that if Bitcoiners have the wealth, then they can build that stuff.
The Bitcabs.
There you go.
I think there's always going to be trade-offs, though. There's always going to be ways to do things with privacy and then without privacy. There's always going to be there was this comment from Johnny Lee Young: trading your privacy for convenience is a dangerous path. You can do it if you want to, but you also have the choice not to, right? Like, some people have Ring doorbells in front of their houses, and wherever that server is, they know when you're leaving and you're going into your house, right? But then I guess you kind of think about whether it's worth it to you or not. Is it worth it to you to have that doorbell there so that if somebody does try to knock on your door and tries to get in overnight, you can see it? But then you don't know where that information is going. Again, whenever you leave your house, somebody on some server somewhere out there can probably see that you left your house. So there's always those trade-offs. I think that's what Bitcoin is going to. I think that's what the market is going to focus on. Right, with the market, what people are going to do is they're going to vote with their Bitcoin. They're going to pay for the things that they think are more valuable. And I think with Bitcoiners, a lot of them do value their privacy. So there probably will be services where, okay, no matter what happens, we're not going to record you. We're not going to do any kind of surveillance. There will probably be alternatives for this, just like everything else. There's always alternatives. It's just, are you willing to pay the entry fee for it?
Right. And I feel like that's what, something that Maple's probably doing is the nice thing is if somebody were to, let's say, build a BitCab like that, and, you could use something like open source where we don't really have to trust the company who's using the cabs. You can prove it essentially through the software running the taxi, stuff like that. So it's cool. I do agree. I think there's trade-offs always. It is always more expensive to be more private. But, that's one of the things that's most exciting to me is like if you're somebody who's holding Bitcoin today, you're going to have that financial leverage in the future where you're actually going to be able to do that. And even in that world with UBI and stuff like that, I think that people are going to have a choice between, do I want to do nothing and just earn UBIs so I can eat and, do whatever I need to do? Or do I want to contribute? I want to earn Bitcoin and I want to be able to leverage that and build businesses and add to society with that. So I think there's going to be a choice with everything, but it is good to see that there are Bitcoiners taking this stuff seriously between open source stuff and encryption, things like that, really utilizing the technology that we have for the betterment of humanity and not vice versa.
Yeah, and this stretches into Bitcoin custody as well, right? It's not just AI, it's not robotaxis, but it's like, where are you storing your Bitcoin and what privacy are you giving up for that convenience? So that can be having your own hardware wallet and doing it safely and securely yourself, or maybe you're keeping it with someone like River or Strike, where you feel like you trust the company, but they're still your custodian. You're giving up some privacy there, right? You had to do KYC to join that. And then you can go as far as like some of these ETFs or buying MicroStrategy, which is another step in the custodian matrix. And that could be pulled away at any moment by government orders that say we are going to seize all the Bitcoin that are held by these people. So I think we need to take privacy and consider this comment, that we just had about trading your privacy is a dangerous path. Like it can be a dangerous path if you want to hold on to your stack long term.
Mm-hmm.
Very dangerous. Yeah.
One of the other questions I had, Mark, was, I recently got to start 9 about a year ago now. And one of the things that I'm most fascinated with and interested in the future is like, if you think about it from Maple AI's perspective and ChatGPT, Venice, whoever it is, these AIs are all very reliant on, data, people putting in information, scraping the web. I think it's going to become more difficult for this reason is Bitcoiners and similar, whether they're Bitcoiners or not, but people who want to be more sovereign and private, they're going to choose options that don't actually allow these AIs to scrape their data. And so when that happens, I foresee a shortage of data in the future. So I'm interested to hear kind of your thoughts on this. I think I heard this on Breedlove's podcast a while ago and I was interested in it, Whereas like if you had a home server, something like a Start9, and you could actually utilize apps within your day-to-day life that tracks your data, all that data gets sent back to your Start9, and then you could actually package that up and sell it to like a company like Maple or Venice or ChatGPT for them to utilize that data. But what's your thoughts on like these AI companies paying people in the future for their data instead of where we are today?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a second use case for Bitcoin being some kind of payment mechanism for AI in the future, is paying people for their data. That said, we should delineate between the two different kinds of AI apps you might use out there. You have the foundational AI apps, which are the ones building the models. And then you have apps like us that are just running models. So we run open source models. Venice does the same thing. So we're not taking user data and training on it. We are simply letting users input the data that they want to feed to the AI, and it's done all encrypted end to end. But someone like ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, Meta, these are like the big foundational companies that are hoovering up as much data. They're taking all the data that they can and trying to improve it. So I would love for there to be a world where you could charge ChatGPT to access your data and train off of it. I think that'd be really cool. Right now, they are not doing that. The New York Times really famously wants OpenAI to pay them, and that's why they got the lawsuit going right now. So I think we will see something happen in that space. But I think it would be really cool. And I've talked to some Bitcoiners in the last few months about this concept. Like maybe there's an idea where a Bitcoiner can spin up an actual foundational model, and they allow users to pay to have their data, or be paid for their data effectively. There are some caveats there, some things you'd have to figure out, like you don't want people to game the system and submit bogus data just to get paid. So you have to figure out how do you make sure the data is good and all that. But I think that will be another revenue source in the future as all of these AIs and foundational companies have maxed out all the data that they can find. They're going to need to get more private information from us, and we should not just give that away freely.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's one thing that I'm really excited about in the future. I know it's hard to really predict, what's exactly going to play out. And thanks for clarifying that too. I wasn't really sure between the models and the people running the models. So that's interesting. We got a question here from the Zapstream, actually, from Mateo. He said, "Can we set up a private key instead of email on Maple AI? Is that possible?"
At the moment, it's not. We get requests a lot to do Nostr accounts with Maple, which we want to do in the future. There is a problem that nobody is really running a secure Nostr login somewhere. And maybe something's come about recently, but as of from what I know, there's not. So either we have to run our own in a secure enclave, or someone has to do it. We're not focused on Nostr as our primary use case. I love Nostr. I use it every day. So definitely am a Nostr fan, but it's just not our primary business right now to run a Nostr identity service. So I'm really hopeful that one of these other companies like Primal or somebody else will step up and run a Nostr identity service. And if they do, then we will happily integrate OAuth with Nostr accounts. And at that point, yes, you could create a private key and sign in with Maple. Over half our users use privacy email addresses. And so they just go onto one of these services, and that's how they access Maple. So we don't even know who they are. But no, we definitely want to allow for that use case in the future. We're just not there yet on our priority list. It's not there yet.
That's fair. What do you think, Mark, in terms of like, if we play this out, kind of what we were talking about a minute ago, in terms of like the New York Times saying, "Hey, ChatGPT, you're not allowed to use our data without paying us," and then that catches on, and more people start doing that. What do you see happening with that? Because in order for these AIs to keep being up to date and relevant, they have to continuously scrape the internet for this data. And if all of a sudden that kind of stops, they're going to have the legacy of the existing information, but they're not going to have access to current and up to date data. Do you foresee that being a problem for them? And how do you see that playing out?
Well, I think we already saw some of it playing out. We have XAI that bought Twitter, right? Bought X. So an AI company bought one of the biggest social networks in the world. And then I was at LlamaCon, which was Meta's conference 2 months ago, and Mark Zuckerberg told all of us, we love having all of your data inside of WhatsApp, and we love all your data inside of Instagram and Facebook. This is what we're using to train our models. So I think the foundational models own the data already. And then you have others like OpenAI and Anthropic who don't. So what you might end up seeing is maybe OpenAI just buys the New York Times. Or, like we might see some really big acquisitions happen where they say, okay, if we want to have this data and you're not going to give it to us, then we will just buy you.
Yeah, that's interesting.
A quick follow along there. You have Amazon that's supposedly getting more into the AI game, and Jeff Bezos owns, which one is it? The Washington Post, right? So yeah, I think we're going to see a convergence of information sources and AIs.
So it probably in the short term will lead to more walled gardens then, right? Does that make sense? Like if Amazon owns Washington Post, they're going to stop Washington Post from being available to the other models. And it's just going to be like they're buying up different data spots of the internet over time.
Probably. I mean, you have that right now with Meta and with XAI. So if you want to have an AI that knows the latest stuff on Twitter, you got to go use Grok. I don't think you can get it from anybody else.
Yeah. Forrest, Rajat, do you guys have any more questions you want to follow up in terms of AI? We'll maybe spend the last couple of minutes here talking about some Bitcoin stuff, but do you guys have any last thoughts on or questions on AI stuff?
I think I'm good. I think there was a lot of new knowledge there that I didn't know about before. So I'm going to have to take some time to really digest it. I'm going to have to watch this a couple times.
Yeah, same. Yeah, my questions have been answered and way beyond that. So very happy with that for sure.
Mark, in terms of Maple AI today, like the website itself will have a link in the comments. It's trymaple.ai. Again, for anybody who's just kind of tuning in right now, we're not affiliated with Maple AI. We just have the same name as them. They're not paying us to be on here. Nope. It's just a good conversation about Bitcoin and AI. But in terms of that, Mark, what would you say to somebody who's watching right now, just your average person? How can they better utilize AI? If they want to try maple.ai, they can. If they want to use something else. But like, how should people be thinking about AI in terms of their day-to-day life right now? What's kind of like just how people can start learning?
Yeah. Obviously, the best way to start learning is to start using it. And all of these AI services have free accounts. So it's no cost to you. It's just your time. And then I think Rajat, I think you're the one who said it. It's also, if you sell your privacy, then if you go use someone like ChatGPT, you're selling your privacy to get that free account. We don't buy your privacy at Maple. You can get a free account there. But I think the best way to start using it is to just go create an account, and any kind of like Wikipedia type lookup you would do if you want to learn about something, go into AI and type it in and see what it gives you. And you'll start to, I think, realize, and light bulbs will start to turn on of like how you can use this in your life. A lot of people love to use it to help them write a difficult email that they might need to send to someone, whether that's a job that they want to get or some hard news they have to deliver. You can use AI to help you draft that. And then you kind of start to piece together. It's like, okay, what other tasks do I have in my life? And maybe just challenge yourself. A lot of people have issued these challenges online. Like, what's one task today that I could use AI to help me do? And you might start to find little things here and there. So that's the best way, I think, to get started, is just go create a free account and start just seeing what it's capable of.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I've been doing that myself. One of the most common questions I have for AI is, can I feed my dog this?
Yes.
But it's good because it's like, if you've ever Googled your symptoms before on Google, it's a nightmare. You got 12 stages of cancer. You're going to die next week. But like, I feel like the AIs actually give a better, like, neutral summary without scaring people, at least pointing you in the right direction and talking some like, it just seems more logical to me than anything else. Like Google to me is unusable now. I haven't used Google for a long time. Besides like finding images that are already like taken with actual cameras and not just AI generated stuff. So yeah, that's great advice there, Mark. The best thing to do is just try it. And understand that you're going to be utilizing this or using this a lot in the future. And probably the sooner you can start playing around with it, the more valuable that you're going to be in your life, for your family, for your business, if you're an employee, to your company. It's important.
Yeah, I would just say start having conversations with it, and once you get an answer, ask it about the answer. And likely, if you continue to use AI, you'll come up with new use cases for it. Like, I started using AI for research and for all sorts of different things, and now I'm using it to code, and I've never learned to code ever in my life before, but now I'm not only just using it to code, like vibe coding, but actually getting it to teach me what it's doing so that I can actually understand what the code is saying as well. So it's a very useful learning tool, I find.
Yeah,
definitely. What do you use it for mostly, Mark, in your life?
So I have a couple of recent use cases. One of them was so I have a dog and a cat, and our cat was kind of being weird. And so I went and took a picture of the cat's litter, and I sent it to Maple. And then I said, hey, this is what the litter looks like, and here are some of the symptoms that the weird behavior that my cat has been exhibiting. And Maple was right on with the diagnosis, said this is what it probably is. Go see a vet. So we took the cat to the vet. We didn't say anything about it. We just took him in and said, she's being weird. And their diagnosis was the same as the AI.
Wow.
And had that been like one of my children, I definitely would not want to do that with ChatGPT, because I don't want to give away that personal information. So I would have done that with Maple as well. And I still would have gone to see a doctor, right? I'm not going to just like self-medicate off of something that AI has told me. Unless it's small, right? But if it's a major thing, I'll still go see a doctor. But I think there's a lot of stuff like that we can do. And then the other one that I had, and it just escaped me right now, so I'll have to try and remember. But yeah, no, it's really just trying to find ways that coding. You mentioned coding.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to have this tool that would let me download videos from YouTube, because sometimes you have stuff on there, you're trying to clip stuff off, and my app wanted me to like update to a new version. I had to pay like a bunch of money to them. So I just went into Maple, and another thing I didn't want to do in ChatGPT, because I assumed they would tell me, I'm not going to write a script for you for downloading content from YouTube. So I used Maple, and it was happy to do it, right? And within like 15 minutes, I had a script. I had to go back and forth and chat with it a bunch, iterate, say this broke, and you just copy and paste the error and tell it, here's what happened. Yeah. And within 15 minutes, I had a workable script that would download videos from YouTube. So now I just paste the URL in, and it downloads the video to my folder. It was awesome.
Incredible.
That is cool. Yeah, there's lots of opportunities out there. I think the main thing people can take away today is just try it. Try it out. Be careful with the information you put in there, especially if you're using something like ChatGPT, which is taking your data, encroaching on your privacy. But Mark, let's maybe spend the last couple of minutes here just talking about Bitcoin, because you are a Bitcoiner. Obviously, you've been building a lot of different things in Bitcoin. What are you most excited about right now? And I know there's a lot to be excited about. What's kind of like at the top of your mind in terms of, obviously the price has been good. People are happy about that. We're usually more concerned with the demand side of things, the adoption. What have you seen lately that's piqued your interest in terms of Bitcoin stuff?
I'm really interested in the eCash aspect of it. And I know that some people kind of glaze over when we talk about it, but eCash is really just a user experience on top of Bitcoin, is the best way I can describe it. It's a way to scale Bitcoin, but it still ties back to like the on-chain activity. So to me, that's a big one. And I just love watching all the innovation happening there. And then overall, it really is just the technologies that are being built. So many, during the 2017 pump we had with all the ICOs, there were all these altcoins that came up and promised to have these revolutionary new Bitcoin 2.0, Bitcoin 3.0 technologies. And then 2021, we had another pump, which was not ICOs, but it was like FTX and some of these other people who were trying to do financial manipulation on Bitcoin. And now in 2025, I really feel like the technology is expanding on coming back and being built on top of Bitcoin. And to me, that's just exciting. I keep picturing the meme of the dude that's decked out in gold, like everything gold. And he's like, I'm here for the technology, right? I really feel like I am. And I feel like we're finally entering that phase where like the technology is finally arriving, and we've been building for 10 plus years, and now we're starting to hit scale.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you, if people are like, we're not going to explain eCash here, but if people are out there listening to this, do you have any resources or things that people, if they want to learn more about eCash, they could go to, or wallets they could try, advice?
Yeah, I mean, Cashew is a big project to look at, CASHU, and then Fedimint is another one to look at. They are two different ways that are approaching eCash, but it all goes back to a guy named David Chaum, last name Chaum, back in the 80s, who like invented the theory of eCash. And then he tried to do his own implementation in the 90s, and supposedly had a big partnership with Microsoft to launch his wallet on Windows 95, which would have been massive. Wow. But it fell apart due to regulatory concerns, there, which is like always happens right now in the Bitcoin space. We don't have clear regulations. So yeah, those are some places to start. Just go start looking at those. Do not put all your life savings into eCash. I don't even think you ever will. Like, I don't think that's its purpose, right? Its purpose is to be like your wallet in your pocket, where you would never put all of your life savings in your pocket and walk around the street. So don't do that with eCash. Just know that anything you put in there, just treat it as if it could disappear, because either the software you're using is brand new and buggy, or because this is a little bit more of a trust model where you are trusting other people. It eventually goes back to Bitcoin on chain, but there is a little bit more trust involved. So use it for transactions that are meant to be short-lived.
Somebody asked a question in the chat there. Not sure if you can answer that, Mark. He said, will there be IDE extensions for Maple AI for coding? I don't even know what that means. I just want to make sure that they get the question answered.
Yeah, so IDE is like a developer environment. So is there going to be an app, something like Cursor or Claude Code, where you can plug it into Maple? So instead, if I was building my app inside of this developer app, I don't want to use Claude because maybe Claude is gatekeeping and it's going to shut me down because they don't like what I'm doing. The short answer is yes. We just don't have it yet. We're going to build an API for Maple so that developers can programmatically access the best private AI you can have out there online. We just don't have it yet. It's on our list.
I will. I'll be staying tuned for that one because I'm using Cursor right now, and I would way rather use something private.
Yeah, Cursor's great. Claude Code, they're both great. Yep. We use Claude Code a lot to help us build Maple. So we would love to have an API for ourselves as well.
Cool. Very cool.
Sorry, this is funny. I just got a text message from a scammer trying to get my Bitcoin off of one of the exchanges. Just came in right now.
There seem to be ramping up. I don't know if it's just the season. Maybe they're hoping to catch somebody on a nice afternoon buzz in the summertime. But yeah, they're ramping up right now. They're bad. The scammers are out. I see some in the comments too talking about XRP. I don't know if they're real people or not, but anyways, boys, do you got any more questions for Mark?
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay. Cool. Well, Mark, thanks for coming on today. Where can people find you? I see you got your X account there. Yep. Marks_WT win for the win.
Yeah, FTW for the win, Freedom Tech Weekend, however you want to view it.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it's multiple plays there.
Awesome.
Yeah, you can find me on X. You can go to trymaple.ai, check out what we're doing, what we're building there. All of our stuff's on GitHub if you want to go look at our code on GitHub. And then I'm also on Primal, on Nostr. I'm Marks at primal.net over there.
Okay. Last question for you. If people are trying to become more sovereign, more private, more secure in their life, what's just one small thing that people can do? We don't want to overwhelm people here with a whole bunch of stuff, but just one thing that people could do in their day-to-day life that's going to make them a little bit more private.
Yeah, I would say all of your phones, I'm pretty sure all your viewers have a cell phone, smartphone. Go look at like which app you use the most. You can usually sort by your time, your screen time used, and then maybe pick one of those apps and say, is there a version of this app that is more private? And so the biggest one usually is text messaging. So go grab an app like Signal and maybe just pick one or two friends that you have and say, hey, I want to start texting you over Signal because I know it's more secure and private. And maybe that's your first step. Or you can look at like your photos. Maybe you store all your photos with Amazon or Google or someone. Maybe download one of the more open photo apps and see if you can start sharing your photos through there or storing them there. Just pick little things like that. Start small.
Great advice. If your friends are anything like mine, they'll tell you to FO and
that's where you got to find the good friend and ask them.
But it's true. Like, I mean, for my friends, like the stuff that we talk about, I don't care if anybody sees it, but the things that I talk about with like Rajat, Forrest, other Bitcoiners, if it's important stuff about financials or their, home security stuff, whatever that is, you should always be using something like Signal. I think that's a great tip, and they will understand. They'll appreciate the privacy aspect there. So I think that's it. We had a large crowd today. Sorry we couldn't get to a lot of the questions. But we just kind of popped up. We're actually going to record this episode, and then we just decided, you know what, let's just do it live. We're here. So thanks for hanging out with us today. Thanks for being on here, Mark. And we'll be back here on Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern time for the weekly Maple Bitcoin live stream. So thanks, fellas. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks
a
everyone.
lot, Mark.